this morning we'll be talking about the light that shines within us. And I would like to start with reading a quote from Agni Yoga. There's a book in the Agni Yoga series called Aum. And this is one of the quotes from Aum 143. It says, "Let us not look into that infinity where thought and light and all that exists merge into unity, but according to the earthly understanding, let us apprehend light as a salutary energy, without which life is impossible. Light is the most pervasive messenger of salvation. One can distinctly comprehend a difference between utilitarian fire and cosmic. Not fire, but radiance surrounds each of us, each living being. The benevolent thinker is surrounded, listen, this is so beautiful. The benevolent thinker is surrounded by a rainbow, and through his light brings healing. So many times we have foretold, we with a capital W, meaning the hierarchy, the members of hierarchy. So many times we have foretold the future of these radiations. We have said that with such a criterion, the very structure of life will be transformed. One may rightly call light the principle which leads to regeneration." So just a little, I'm going to take a little pause here to say this. When Aum says we have foretold the future of these radiations, I think that the Master is talking about the externalization of the hierarchy. And more disciples and initiates coming into incarnation to bring their radiation to the planet. I really believe that that is what the Master is saying. Then he goes on to say, one might rightly call light the principle which leads to regeneration. So think of the great ones coming into incarnation, right? Think of all the disciples in the world waking up, and initiates finally arranging their life in such a way now that they're committed to the evolution of humanity and increasing the light of humanity. One might rightly call light the principle leads to regeneration, and that's our hope, is regeneration. So, no matter what is going on in our life, no matter how many problems we have in our life, no matter whether we have addictions of alcoholism or drug addictions or sex addictions or any of these addictions that we find so many in humanity today, enslaved by, even depression. There's so much depression found in today's world, not just with individuals, but also with families, also with nations and countries find themselves depressed. So our hope is regeneration. Our hope is that we ourselves are awakening to such a point that our light is now being released. And we are radiating that light into our family life, into our group and community life. And not just physically, but also in the astral world, etheric world, astral world, mental world. And if we have such illumination, we can then bring the substance of light and love and power from the spiritual triad down into the higher mind, into the lower mind, into the personality life of all those that we touch. The most essential part of this sutra, or 4 points actually. So let me repeat these 4 points. The first was light as a salutary energy without which life is impossible. Light is a salutary energy without which life is impossible. The second is light is the most pervasive messenger of salvation. So pervasive, we could say universal. Third, the benevolent thinker is surrounded by a rainbow. That's you. That's us. That's hierarchy. That's the great ones. Surrounded by a rainbow, and through his light brings healing. See, I don't think we have to, as esoteric healers, that we have to be so involved with the mechanics of healing. I think that if we radiate our light, if that rainbow is indeed surrounding us, then whatever we touch is healed. That can include little squirrels and birds and even salamanders that my dogs like to chase, and sometimes take their tails. And also people. And we don't even have to be, worried about it. We don't have to think, oh my gosh, am I surrounded by that rainbow today? And how am I going to heal this person and that little salamander or that poor little bird? It's by our essence. It's by our light, that it just happens. It's by our presence that this healing just happens. The effect is pretty noticeable. I was thinking the first time that I really experienced the presence of someone who was surrounded by a rainbow, I couldn't stop smiling. I felt ridiculous because I couldn't take the smile off my face. It was so wonderful and so beautiful and so healing. And every time I came into the presence of that person, I felt amazing joy. And I know that person didn't calculate how much light they're going to shine or whether that rainbow was surrounding them or not, just by their presence, by their beingness. Light is a principle which leads to regeneration. Then in the Leaves of Moria's Garden, second volume, we are instructed, work in the light. This is very practical, teaching here. Work in the light. Make your decisions in the light. Pass judgments in the light. Grieve in the light. And rejoice in the light. That's on page 241. Then Helena Rourke tells us, the founder of Agni Yoga, she tells us, light is matter in motion. Light is matter in motion. We can understand that in part from the viewpoint of physics and, of course, the teaching. We would understand light is matter in motion by fire by friction, solar fire and electric fire. This would be light is matter in motion. Electric fire is found in the intuitional plane. Do we have enough radiation? Do we have enough light within each cell, within each atom of our being, that we are now resonating with the substance of the intuitional plane? If so, then that rainbow that's surrounding us is radiating the substance of intuition. Solar fire. Solar fire. Light is matter in motion. Solar fire is found in the higher mental plane. Have we increased that fire to such a degree that now our consciousness is functioning in the higher mental plane? If so, then we are radiating solar fire, that sun consciousness, which I talked about at the 2025 initiative a couple of weeks ago. And then we have fire by friction, which is found in the physical etheric world. In other words, the greater the light, the greater is one's striving. The greater the light, the greater is one's striving. The greater one's striving, the greater the motion. Striving in light leads to regeneration of the self within man. Now, I was thinking about this, as I was putting the talk together, and I thought, this really takes a dedication. And we find people, who like to be more spiritual, but then we find people who are really dedicated to spirituality. They're really dedicated to the esoteric teaching. And these are the people who I consider pioneers, the pioneers of humanity, that they are so immersed with service. They are so immersed in striving, not for themselves, but as a way to bring greater light, into the world, into humanity, that this makes sense to them. This being striving in light leads to regeneration of the self within man. We know that drinking does not regenerate the self. We know that drug addiction does not regenerate the self. But we also know that addictions can be eradicated by the presence of light. See, and that's our hope. Wherever we take our light, when that light goes into darkness, then that darkness regenerates the self within. Now, sometimes people say, I can't stand the light, and they run from the light. Well, it's still their choice to run from the light. Running from the light means they're running from taking responsibility, to regenerate themselves. They're running from the opportunity to release their soul into light. It's very interesting to see what light does. It either regenerates us, helps us to awaken, gives us a sense of greater purpose in our life, or we run away from it, but it is our choice. What is so important to remember is that every human being is a drop of light. And it's that drop of light that becomes magnetic and attracting and brings the light, more light to us, brings the presence of light to us. Bringing the presence of that light into our own life, into our own environment, gives us that opportunity to transform ourselves. And in that process of transformation, our light then begins to increase. Twofold, threefold, fivefold, until eventually we become that rainbow surrounding us. So even if your life is totally miserable today, and you are immersed in fear and guilt and despair and depression, put yourself in the presence of light. And that light, the presence of that light, will ignite that drop of light within you. And you will take that next step, into living the potential of 5 principles. And I'm going to talk about those 5 principles in a minute. When we talk about the drop of light, this is what we call the self, capital S, self, or the human soul. The light shines more and more and more as a person brings him or herself into greater beauty, into expressing more beauty in our thoughts, in our thinking, through our words and through our actions. So even if you're thinking ugly, you want to say something that's just going to get even with that stupid person. It's like, we all have moments like that. Well, maybe not all of us, but I do. Anyway, so you stop yourself and you place yourself in that beautiful location. Maybe it's your meditation altar, or maybe it's in nature. It's just like this quick glimpse, this image comes into your mind. Oh, okay. And instead of saying something ugly to that person, you might not say anything at all, but you're thinking something beautiful, something peaceful, something that's contemplative. And you're saving yourself. This is the process of regenerating yourself. In the teachings of Torquem Serderian, he stated in almost every lecture that he ever gave, he talked about the power of 5 principles. And he said these 5 principles have cosmic origin and that they are related to the higher worlds. These principles are beauty and goodness and righteousness and joy and freedom. The 5 principles. Again, repeating myself, that these 5 principles have their origins in the cosmic world. That these are cosmic principles. And that they're related to the higher worlds. As we apply these principles to our life, as we speak about them and act through them, we're increasing our light. Not our darkness. We are increasing our light. Striving toward these major principles then multiplies our light. Thinking is an act of expressing these principles. See, taking that moment where you want to punch somebody with your words and just stop yourself and think of something beautiful. It's okay to be human. I mean, we are, so it's okay to be human, but sometimes human beings are really, really ugly and nasty, and we don't want to be around them, but we are. They seem to want to come into our force field and test us. But if we can just take that, that knee-jerk reaction where we want to be as ugly as they are, instinctively, reactively, and say, wait, stop, just a minute. Let me think something beautiful or something good. And you feel so much better about yourself, even though it's hard sometimes. But there's, good reason to do it. Speech. Speech is an act of sharing these principles. Action is a way of actualizing them in our lives. Not so many people realize or even know that they are a light. Although they know that they are a body, they know their feelings or emotions, and they know they are thoughts. The realization that a person is in his essence, light, is the moment when he begins to be creative. This is very important to remember, that the minute we realize that in essence we are light is the moment we become creative. See, being creative is stopping ourselves from punching that person with a word and thinking something more beautiful. Thinking about something good. Or thinking about the future like Richard was reading this morning. That will manifest something really great. Creativity is the process, then, of manifestation of light. Each outgoing wave of light carries with it these 5 principles. So like they're linked together, they're networked together. Beauty, goodness, righteousness, joy, and freedom. As creativity increases, as our creativity increases, our light shines more and more. If creativity withdraws, then that person slowly ends in darkness. He becomes a piece of charcoal. We know people like that, and we pray for people like that. We have compassion, and understanding what it means when a person becomes a piece of charcoal. The teaching indicates that there are millions of charcoals walking in the streets. Light increases and transformation starts when a person is forced to think, not to instinctively and mechanically, parrot someone else's words, but really to think. Thinking is an effort to bring in light or to release the light within you. And thinking has 2 objectives. The first is to make light serve the interests of your own ego. And the second is to make light serve for the liberation of all. To serve your own ego or for the liberation of all. When a person is serving the interests of his or her own ego, that person is headed, you know what I'm going to say, they're headed down a dead-end street. This method of thinking ends with a catastrophe that the thinking itself creates. For a simple example, but not necessarily with a simple effect, would be divorce. A couple that is fighting for their self-interest instead of asking to be liberated from the marriage vow. Usually in a divorce, there is a victim and an aggressor. And if there are children, of course, it is the children then that become injured emotionally and mentally and sometimes physically injured. That is an example of a dead-end street. That even though the divorce is granted, it usually becomes a catastrophe for one of the spouses and the children. The increase of inner light progresses in the right direction when it occupies itself in the work of increasing the light in others. If you're not happy with your spouse, increase your own light. And by increasing your own light, you're increasing the light in others. Eventually, you become a server or a transmitter of the light of the higher worlds. Light manifests as colors light manifests as colors through our thoughts and words and actions. Do you know what that means? It's like when I look at the paintings of Nicholas Rourke, and I look on the walls of our sanctuary here, and we have the tent mountain, and we have She Who Leads, and we have the Mother of the World, and we have St. Sergius, and we even have this magnificent chair that was used by Torgrim Serdarian. This is light, this is color. Love and light and power radiate colors. So, you can't pretend to be an artist and radiate beautiful colors. You can't begin or pretend to be a musician and a great talent and radiate these kind of colors. You have to be pure in your motivation to liberate the light in others. So when we see these magnificent paintings of Nicholas Rourke, it releases the light in us because of the colors coming as waves from the light of the Master. The intensity and creativity of light is determined by the harmony of the colors it creates in the aura around the person as he thinks or as you think and act and speak. Some people are walking lights, other people are walking shadows. The light in these shadows are not lit. That's it. The light in these shadows is not yet lit. Illumination is a process of the increase of light. It is the increasing light that makes our body beautiful and healthy, that makes us emotional, that makes our emotional radiations peaceful and positive and soothing, that makes our mental relationships uplifting and enlightening and balancing, and you will be tested. Why being tested? Because we are told this is a planetary school. And we're in all kinds of classrooms from the time we're born to the time we die. So we can't just sit on our tuffet and meditate and radiate light and say, oh, I've graduated. And, okay, you think you've graduated, here come a flood of tests. And that flood of tests will be found in the shadows, those shadows that are not yet lit. It's so easy to love people who have beauty and goodness and joy and freedom in their beingness. But that's not our job. It's not our task. Our task is to ignite the light in others through our beauty, through our goodness, through our joy, through our ability to free others. So light is a guide on the path of perfection. As the light increases, our influence increases. Now, what does that mean? It means as we practice the teaching, as we put the teaching of the great ones, of the brotherhood, of hierarchy, into expression, it means the teaching is increasing in light. It means that the teaching is being distributed throughout the world. It means that the teaching is illuminating that drop of light in others. To influence means to increase the light of others. We are going to influence others with the light of the teaching. To influence others with the light of the teaching means we are living the light, see? We are living the teaching. The larger the area of your influence, the greater your light. Your light kindles the lights of others. Each kindling of light evokes an urge toward perfection, toward cooperation, and toward right human relations. It is very interesting to note that we can also create darkness by misusing our light. I could give you so many examples, but then you have to have your own. To have your own experiences and your own examples to really have it impact you. To know that we can also create darkness by misusing our light. And what I'm saying by that is you learn how others take their light, and create darkness with it. Okay, here's one example. I love you. I will love you forever and ever and ever. I will love you throughout eternity. And then tomorrow, you have betrayed that person that you're going to love throughout eternity. That's how you can create darkness, by misusing your light. The misuse of light also occurs when light is identified with your pleasures, glamours, illusions, vanity, and ego. To create darkness means to dim your light. To create darkness means to dim your light within and to create ugliness and hatred and separatism and injustice and pain and suffering and sorrow and slavery and ignorance. As you can put out a candle or a fire, you can also put out your light. You can also put out the fire of other human beings through your thoughts and words and actions and example. You can obliterate their light by leading them toward materialism, through luxury, toward hatred and separatism, and paralyzing their ability to think and live freely. Every effort to enslave people in any way is an effort to create darkness, crystallization, and death. When a person thinks along the lines of these 5 principles, just the opposite happens. Beauty, goodness, righteousness, joy, and freedom increases their light. When you think along criminal lines, you lose your light. What's criminal lines? I'm going to get even with you. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to withdraw my love and my light from you. See, that's criminal activity. When you think along criminal lines, you lose your light. And in the circuit of light, you cannot create short circuits. In the circuit of light, you cannot create short circuits. The short circuiting of light on any plane creates sickness and disease. Many illnesses in our physical, emotional, and mental domains are caused by 1, resisting the incoming light, 2, burning our light, 3, working against the light, and 4, not shining our light. This is how we short circuit the light on any plane. When we increase our light, we are regenerating ourselves. See, and this goes back to that first statement in the Aum verse I read, that light is a principle which leads to regeneration. When we increase our light, we are regenerating ourselves. When we short circuit our light, we are creating various diseases and darkness. The emancipation of light is health on all levels, in all fields. Invoke the light of the cells in your body. and in your astral and mental vehicles. Let the light shine forth from each cell, each atom, and the radiation of light will regenerate all of your systems. So light is the flame of life and needs what? What does light need? Love. Okay. Light is the flame of life and it needs the oil of love to perpetuate its radiation. All that is light, all that is love, and all that is beauty brings the more abundant life. So what are we going to choose? Are we going to choose revenge? Are we going to try to hurt that person? To get even? Or are we going to bring in the oil of love to perpetuate the radiation of our light? And when we can do that, we are going to bring a more abundant life into our life and into the life of those that hate us or dislike us or want to commit some injustice against us. And the great ones have all given examples. They have, even those who have been assassinated by an enemy, their last word is always, forgive them. So in the last few minutes left here, let me quickly go through these notes. Here's some practical steps to increase our light. Basically, it's purification, purification, purification. So people who are really on the path of perfection, who do not want to wander in the valleys of sickness and death and war and distress and depression and sickness and so forth, we must seriously, very seriously engage in the labor of purification. Whatever that means to you, whatever purification means to you. For example, purification of our body and our organs. In fact, the very first step the teaching tells us is get rid of the pollution of our body. What pollutes our body? Cigarettes, marijuana. Sorry, Colorado. I know there are a couple of other states. I remember Colorado because I have a son that lives there. Don't you do that? Marijuana, various drugs, alcohol, wine, chemicals, poisons, and dims our light. Whether we believe it or not, it does. So if you love the teaching and if you want to practice the teaching, to put the teaching in your life, begin this process of purification. Sleep in pure air. This helps you to withdraw into higher centers and higher planes. This kindles new light in your mental body. So when you wake up in the morning, you're going to wake up with joy. And this thirst for beauty. Decayed food must not be kept in the house because it invites many dark entities into your home. As the light increases in you, you can easily see the dark corners of your life, and then you must try to clean them. Irritation is another cause of darkness. Emotional purification is carried on by increasing our compassion and our love. Mental purification is achieved in trying to think and speak in the light of facts and truth and reality. Preventing our minds from functioning in the winds of fantasy. See, in ugliness and hatred and injustice and despair and slavery. Mental purification is carried on further through the exercises of concentration and dedication. Concentration and dedication. Mental purification is carried on further through these exercises of concentration and dedication. You can find various exercises in a book called The Science of Meditation by Torkim. And we sell all of his books at our online bookstore. There's a little advertising there. Go to our website, go to our online bookstore, and you'll find some beautiful publications there. Concentration is the ability to focus your mind and your emotions and your energy upon your thoughts, upon your words, upon your actions, and upon a great goal. That's concentration. Power is the result of concentration. If you want power, concentrate. Concentration is dignity and clarity and the cause of great achievements. The health of our body and balance in emotions, the health of our body and the balance in the emotions are the result of concentration. Givingness increases our light. So we want to learn how to give. Those who know how to renounce and give live in the light. When I think about our sanctuary that was given to us, the paintings on the wall were given to us, the chairs were given to us. Those who know how to renounce and give live in the light. Every day we must sacrifice. Sacrifice is the result of renunciation and giving. Our light also increases through intelligent study and through formulating certain questions. Present questions to your mind and ask for the answers. When you get the answers, write the answers down and ask the same question again. And do this for a month, trying to receive deeper and deeper answers. This is meditation and concentration. I'm going to close with this. Here is a prayer you can say every single day with deep concentration. My Lord, let your light quicken the light in my heart. Let that light purify my body. Purify my emotional world. And purify all my thoughts. Let darkness disappear from my whole body and being. Let me shine as a light in health, in joy, in beauty, and in prosperity. Just imagine what's going to happen to you if you say that every day, or during a time of day where you are thinking anything but light. Just stop yourself and say, I can do this. And you memorize that prayer and say it.